You are right, and it does not matter. That is the most disorienting experience an intelligent person can have. You have the facts, you have the logic, you have the evidence assembled so clearly that a child could follow it, and the person sitting across from you, the one who is confidently, aggressively, immovably wrong, looks at everything you have built and simply does not care. You walk away from that conversation depleted, not because you lost, but because you won, and it changed nothing. You were right, and it cost you everything: your energy, your composure, your evening, sometimes your faith in other people entirely. If you have felt that specific exhaustion, this video is going to reframe something fundamental about how you move through the world. What I'm about to share is not about becoming meaner. It is not about contempt. Only it is about precision. It is about understanding exactly what you are dealing with when you encounter willful ignorance, and building a psychology so clean and so protected that no amount of irrationality can reach it again. Arthur Schopenhauer figured this out in the 19th century. He was called a misanthrope, a pessimist, difficult, antisocial. He was actually just honest. Pay close attention, because what follows is going to require you to be honest too. There is a trap that intelligent people fall into so consistently, so reliably, that it almost functions as a law of human behavior. Call it the intelligence trap. It works like this. You possess a mind that values truth. You have been trained, through education, through experience, and through the basic wiring of your personality, to update your beliefs when confronted with better evidence. When someone shows you a compelling argument, you genuinely consider it. When the data contradicts your assumption, you adjust, and so, without realizing it, you make a catastrophic assumption about the people around you. You assume they work the same way. You walk into a disagreement believing that what is about to happen is a collaborative search for truth. You believe that if you can just present the right evidence, arrange the logic clearly enough, use the right analogy, the other person will see it. The light will come on. They will recalibrate. Schopenhauer spent his entire intellectual career documenting why this belief is not just wrong, it is dangerous. In his essay on the art of argument, he observed something that psychology would not formally confirm for another century. People do not argue to find the truth. They argue to establish dominance. The goal of most disagreements is not resolution, it is victory. And victory, for the kind of mind we are talking about, means the other person submitting, regardless of who is actually correct. Decades later, Daniel Kahneman gave us the framework to understand why. In his research on human cognition, he described two systems of thinking. System 1 is fast, automatic, emotional, and instinctual. It produces instant conclusions based on feeling and pattern recognition. System 2 is slow, deliberate, analytical, and logical. It requires effort. The person you are trying to reason with lives almost entirely in System 1. They feel an emotion, attach a conclusion to it, and then call that conclusion a fact. They are not processing your evidence with System 2 because they rarely use it. And here is the part that should change everything for you. They are spending almost no energy in that exchange. They are simply refusing. You are the one burning fuel. You are the one building arguments, anticipating counterpoints, searching for the right framing. They are standing still and letting you exhaust yourself against them. They do not defeat you by being smarter. They defeat you by outlasting you. And now that you see the mechanism, the question is what you do about it. If logic fails, if reason is a trap, if evidence slides off them like water off glass, then what exactly is the winning move? Schopenhauer's answer was as elegant as it was ruthless. You stop fighting their argument, you agree with it, yet not passively, not politely, violently, completely. You take their premise and you walk it forward to its natural conclusion, and you walk it there so enthusiastically, so thoroughly, that the premise collapses under the weight of itself. In formal philosophy, this is called reductio ad absurdum, reduction to absurdity. In practice, it is simply handing someone enough rope to construct their own undoing. Here is what it looks like. A colleague insists loudly that modern art is a fraud, that anyone could do it, that it takes no skill, no training, nothing. Your instinct is to reach for art history, for technique, for the names of movements and the decades of craft behind them. Stop. Instead, look at them with complete sincerity and say, "You are absolutely right. In fact, we should quit today. This afternoon, we buy supplies. You handle the painting, I will find the gallery. By Thursday, we are both retired. Why are we even here? Watch what happens. You have not contradicted them. You have agreed with them so completely that they are now forced to look at where their own logic leads, and they do not like what they see there, so they begin to backpedal. They start injecting qualifications. They introduce nuance. They begin arguing against themselves in order to walk back from the destination their own premise was always heading toward. You did not defeat them with your intelligence. You defeated them with their own." Schopenhauer used this approach against academic rivals throughout his career. He did not grant their arguments the dignity of equal engagement. He amplified their flaws until the flaws became impossible to ignore. When he made the absurdity do the work, so he did not have to. The beautiful thing about this approach is what it costs you. Almost nothing. You step out of the ring entirely. You become an observer watching someone trip over their own reasoning, and the whole exchange costs you none of the energy that a direct argument would have consumed. But there is a price, and it is psychological. You have to be willing to kill something in yourself to use it. Intelligent people are addicted to being right. Not just actually right, visibly right, acknowledged right. You want the moment where the other person pauses, reconsiders, and concedes. You want the moral satisfaction of the argument landing. You want them to know that you won. Schopenhauer would tell you that this craving, this specific hunger for validation from a lesser mind, is itself a form of foolishness. Think about what you are actually asking for. You are requesting that a person who does not have the cognitive architecture to fully evaluate your argument somehow produce a response that reflects its quality. You are asking a colorblind person to confirm that your painting is beautiful. The response you receive will always be inadequate. Not because you are wrong, but because they do not possess the tools to assess it accurately. And yet, you keep asking. You keep presenting the argument one more time, in one more way, at one more angle, hoping that this version finally lands. Every time you do that, you are handing them the remote control to your emotional state. Or if you can drop the need to be recognized as right by someone who is not qualified to recognize it, something shifts. You become immune to their provocations in a way that no amount of composure training ever produces. Because you are not suppressing the reaction. You have simply removed the thing that was triggering it. Let them be wrong. Let them carry their flawed map of the world. Let them walk confidently in the wrong direction. It is not your job to save them. It is your job to protect yourself from the damage they cause when they drag their wrongness through your life. And that requires understanding something that most people never want to accept. Stupidity is contagious. Not in a metaphorical sense, in a measurable, cognitive sense. Our cognitive load theory demonstrates that the human mind operates with a finite amount of processing bandwidth at any given time. When you engage with a highly irrational person, when you are trying to anticipate their unpredictable responses, suppress your own frustration, navigate the emotional minefield of their ego, and simultaneously construct a logical argument, your cognitive resources are being consumed at an enormous rate. Sustained engagement with genuinely irrational thinking does not just exhaust you, it degrades you. Your decision-making quality drops, your creative capacity contracts, your tolerance for ambiguity narrows. You become reactive in contexts that have nothing to do with the original conversation because you are already running close to empty. Schopenhauer was notorious for his solitude, or for keeping his circle ferociously small. People called him cold, antisocial, arrogant. He was managing his mental diet. He understood that the mind takes the shape of what it consistently engages with. If you spend your hours wrestling with circular, irrational, emotionally driven thinking, your own thinking begins to carry those patterns. Not because you become stupid, but because the ruts of that kind of engagement wear grooves into the way you approach problems. He developed what he called the porcupine dilemma, the observation that porcupines in winter need each other's warmth to survive, but their quills cause pain at close proximity. They are trapped between the freezing isolation of distance and the injury of closeness. They must find the exact middle distance. You cannot remove foolish people from your life entirely. They are in your workplace, your family, your city, your industry. The question is not how to eliminate the exposure. The question is how to manage the distance so precisely that their irrationality never actually reaches you. The answer is the avatar. When you are forced into an interaction with someone whose thinking is going to cost you more than it gives, you do not bring your actual self to that table. You bring a constructed version, a front, a character who is present, agreeable, and entirely non-threatening. The avatar nods. The avatar says, "Interesting perspective." The avatar says, "I can see where you are coming from." The avatar gives them nothing to attack because the avatar has no real positions to defend. Meanwhile, your actual mind is somewhere else entirely. Protected, undisturbed. So you're watching the exchange from a distance the way a scientist observes a controlled experiment. This is not dishonesty. This is psychological quarantine. You are physically present in the conversation. Intellectually, you are behind glass. And here is the deeper Schopenhauerian move inside this strategy. The avatar feeds them the one thing they actually came for. They did not come for the truth. They did not come to update their thinking. They came to feel heard, to feel important, to feel that their perspective registered on someone. The avatar gives them that at zero cost to you. They leave the interaction satisfied. You leave it intact. The illusion of engagement is the cheapest gift you can give a fool to keep them from becoming a problem. Now let's address the guilt, because it is coming if it has not already arrived, or the internal voice that says, "This is arrogant, this is manipulative. Who am I to classify someone as less intelligent? What gives me the right?" That guilt has a name. It is socialized conditioning, and it has been the primary reason you have been suffering. You have been trained to treat every mind as equally capable of reason, equally reachable by evidence, equally interested in truth. And, because you believe that, you kept approaching genuinely unreasonable people with the full openness and vulnerability of someone engaged in good faith. They were not engaged in good faith, and your openness cost you. David Robson's research on institutional thinking documents, in concrete terms, what happens when intelligent systems defer to confident but incorrect voices. Not as abstract philosophy, as measurable catastrophe. UA aviation disasters caused by crews who could not challenge an assertive captain. Medical errors caused by hospitals that rewarded confidence over accuracy. Economic collapses fueled by groupthink that penalized dissent. Willful ignorance is not a personal quirk. In the wrong context, it is a force of destruction, and treating it gently, tiptoeing around it, attempting to educate it, giving it your time and energy and emotional availability, does not neutralize it. It empowers it. You do not owe your vulnerability to a hazard. You do not argue with a hurricane. You do not reason with a flood. You identify the force, you assess the damage it can cause, and you build accordingly. You board up the windows. You move to higher ground. And you let the storm exhaust itself without you in its path. But what happens when the fool has power? This is where the philosophy becomes genuinely high stakes. Because dismissing the irrational person in a social setting is one thing. The irrational person who controls your paycheck, your promotion, your access to resources, that requires an entirely different set of tools. Schopenhauer wrote something that most people initially misread as cynical. To display conspicuous intelligence or outstanding qualities in the presence of mediocrity is an unpardonable sin. He was not condemning intelligence. He was describing the psychology of the mediocre mind with authority. When a person of limited intellect acquires power, their entire identity is built on a fault line. They sense, not through analysis but through something more primal, that they are outmatched by the minds around them. They cannot process this as an invitation to grow, yet they process it as an existential threat. And the response to an existential threat is not curiosity, it is elimination. If you walk into their domain and let your capabilities show, if you solve problems they cannot, see connections they miss, arrive at conclusions they would never reach, you are not demonstrating value. You are holding a mirror to their inadequacy, and a fool with power will break the mirror before they will look honestly at the reflection. They will not attack your intelligence directly because that would require acknowledging it. They will attack your character. They will call you difficult, arrogant, not a team player. They will use the machinery of the institution to contain you, to bleed you dry administratively, to ensure that your competence never becomes a threat to their comfort. You cannot out-argue a king inside his own court, you have to outplay him. History gives us the perfect case study in how this is done. Sima Yi was arguably the most formidable strategic mind of his era in ancient China. He found himself serving beneath Cao Shuang, a regent of enormous political power and correspondingly enormous arrogance, impulsiveness, and intellectual insecurity. Sima Yi understood the dynamic precisely. If he displayed his capabilities too openly, Cao Shuang's paranoia would destroy him. If he argued, he would be crushed. Direct challenge was suicide. So he chose the most psychologically sophisticated move available to him. He faked complete deterioration. When Cao Shuang's spies came to assess him, Sima Yi performed the role of a broken, confused, dying old man. He spilled food down his robes, and he struggled to hear. He confused names. He looked, by every measure, like a man whose days of being a threat were entirely behind him. The spy reported back. Cao Shuang laughed. His ego was satisfied. His anxiety dissolved. The man he had feared was finished. He stopped watching. He relaxed his defenses entirely. And the moment Cao Shuang rode out of the capital on a hunting trip, Sima Yi rose from his sickbed and executed a precise, surgical coup that seized the empire in a matter of days. Cao Shuang lost his head because he believed the performance. Sima Yi understood something that you need to internalize today. Your intelligence is not an identity to be displayed. It is a weapon to be concealed. You do not draw a concealed weapon to prove you have it. You keep it hidden until the exact moment its use produces the outcome you need. When dealing with a powerful fool, your job is not to outshine them. Your job is to feed the specific hunger that drives all their decisions, the hunger for superiority. Ask them for advice on minor things. Let them correct you on irrelevant details. Thank them for insights they barely produced. You are not submitting, you are anesthetizing. You are giving their ego enough narcotic satisfaction that they become comfortable, distracted, and manageable while you operate freely in the space their lowered guard creates. You trade a small, temporary scratch to your pride for complete, unhindered maneuverability. Schopenhauer would recognize this immediately. It is not deception for its own sake. It is the strategic management of an irrational force that cannot be moved by reason. Here is the darkest part. The piece that most people never examine in themselves. The reason you keep engaging with them, the real reason, underneath the stated desire to fix or educate or reach them, is that the friction has become part of how you define yourself. It is easy to feel intelligent when you are the sharpest person in the room. It is easy to feel capable when the standard of comparison is someone operating on flawed logic. The constant debate, exhausting as it is, provides a stage. It provides a context in which your abilities are always visible, always measurable, always winning by default. Schopenhauer warned that an intellect which consistently surrounds itself with lesser minds will eventually be shaped by that environment. Not because the lesser minds win, but because the categories of thought available to you contract to fit the conversations you habitually have. You become a large mind operating in a small space, and over enough time, the small space begins to feel normal. The genuinely uncomfortable growth move is not finding better arguments for dealing with fools. It is withdrawing from the performance entirely, removing yourself from the stage, no longer needing the friction to feel alive. What remains when you do that is just you, your actual capabilities, your actual work, your actual questions, the ones that have no easy opponent to argue against, the ones that require you to sit in genuine uncertainty without a fool's wrong answer to feel superior to. That is the real test, and most intelligent people avoid it for decades. When you finally stop engaging, when you drop the rope, stop explaining, and simply observe without participating, something strange happens. The exhaustion lifts immediately, not gradually, immediately. And then something more disorienting follows. You begin to see the whole system clearly. You see the cognitive biases operating in real time. You see the Dunning-Kruger effect running its predictable course through every conversation. You see the ego defending itself with the ferocity of something that knows it is fragile. You see the emotional machinery underneath the words, and it becomes, with practice, almost entirely predictable. What is predictable can be managed. What can be managed cannot drain you. You are no longer a participant in the chaos. You are the person watching the chaos from a position of complete clarity and making decisions within it without being moved by it. A fool's insult stops being an insult. It becomes a misdiagnosis from someone not qualified to diagnose. A fool's rejection of your idea stops being a failure. It becomes confirmation that the idea operated at a frequency they could not receive. Their judgment of you carries exactly the weight that a broken instrument's reading carries, which is none. This is what Schopenhauer spent his life building toward, not hatred of humanity, not withdrawal from the world, but an absolute, unwavering clarity about where to direct his finite energy and where to withhold it. The lion does not lose sleep over the opinion of sheep, not because the lion is cruel, but because the lion understands what sheep are capable of and adjusts its behavior accordingly. But let me give you the specific tools in plain language. When someone argues a position that is so obviously flawed that direct contradiction will only entrench them further, agree with it completely and extend it to its logical conclusion. Let the absurdity do what your argument never could. When you are forced to interact with someone whose irrationality is going to cost you mentally, deploy the avatar. Be present, agreeable, and completely non-revealing. Give them the validation they came for. Protect your actual thinking behind the glass. When you are operating beneath a powerful fool, feed their ego on the small things so they never feel threatened enough to block you on the things that matter. Strategic incompetence in the visible areas. Full capability in the invisible ones. When you feel the pull to keep explaining one more time, I'm to try one more angle to find the framing that finally makes them see it, stop. Ask yourself who that impulse is actually serving. If the answer is your need to be acknowledged rather than any genuine possibility of changing something, withdraw the energy and put it somewhere it can compound. Your intellect is a finite resource. Every hour spent in a circular debate with someone who has decided in advance what they believe is an hour that will never return. The economics are simple and brutal. Stop making trades you cannot afford. You came to this video because you were tired. Not just tired of specific people. Tired in a deeper way. Tired of a world that seems structurally hostile to careful thinking. Tired of watching confidence beat competence. Are tired of feeling like the very sharpness that should be your greatest asset keeps getting turned against you. You thought the solution was a better argument, a sharper fact, a more persuasive delivery. Now you have something more useful than all of those. You have the understanding that the game you were playing was never the game that was actually being played. You were playing a truth-seeking game inside an ego protection contest. And the rules of those two games are completely incompatible. The moment you stop playing the wrong game, the moment you withdraw from the argument you were never going to win and redirect that energy into the work that actually matters, everything changes. Not because the fools disappear. They do not. They are everywhere and they always will be. See, but because you have stopped giving them the one thing they actually need from you to have power over your life, your attention. Keep your intelligence hidden. Keep it sharp. Deploy it only in the service of outcomes that matter to you. And let the people who need to feel right about everything have the one thing you no longer require. The last word. If this reframed something for you, if it named an exhaustion you have been carrying without being able to explain it, subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. The conversation goes deeper from here. You know where to find the next level when you are ready for it.